Привет всем, меня зовут Яма, я говорю по-русски, и у меня шизофрения. Russian is such a cool language, and I love almost everything about it. Almost. Every language has their own weird little quirks that make it unique, and today, I want to share some of these about Russian. And hopefully this video shows you how it feels to learn Russian. Поехали.
Whenever I think someone might try to beat me up or mug me, I fake a Russian accent. I'll be walking home late at night, two dangerous looking thugs walk up to me like, "Yo, man, you know what neighborhood you're in? You think this bad neighborhood?"
Why would you even want to learn this language in the first place? Well, I'm glad you asked. Russian is actually one of the most commonly spoken languages in the world, and the geographical regions where you find native speakers are actually inhumanely beautiful places. On top of that, the Slavic culture is rich with movies, music, and art that I can guarantee you're missing out on. And if that hasn't convinced you yet, you should learn Russian so that you can understand those crazy Russian dash cam videos. Russian is a Slavic language, which means that it uses this goofy A alphabet.
What the fuck?
I can guarantee that this will be a little bit confusing at the start, especially since some of the letters are the same as in English, but they're pronounced differently, such as how the letter B in Cyrillic is pronounced as V, or how the letter H is pronounced as letter N. It'll be challenging to rewire your brain at first, but once you do get the hang of it, this is where the fun begins. One of the good things about having a phonetically consistent alphabet is that there are almost no regional dialects. What I mean by this is that Russian is spoken over a wide span of land. But if you take two NPCs, one from Vladivostok and one from St. Petersburg, chances are they will sound very, very similar. This makes Russian just a little bit more manageable. Think about English and how many different accents there are.
Well, the mother says we had to go anyway. We hadn't much a choice in the matter, but sure.
If you as a native speaker can't understand that, imagine being a foreigner and hearing that accent for the first time. You'd probably start hearing voices. People often say that Russian is a very difficult language to learn, and I don't entirely disagree with that sentiment, but there are a lot of these little things that make it easier. Like how there's no articles in Russian. So for example, in English, you always have to say the book, a book. In Russian, you don't do all that BS, you just say book. It makes Russian just a little bit easier. Word order is another one. English has this subject, verb, object sentence structure, like in the phrase, I'm eating an apple. You can't say eating I'm an apple, because that's a grammatical abomination. But in Russian, you can say, I'm eating an apple, apple I'm eating, eating I'm apple, and it'll all mean the same thing. For all you advanced learners, I want to point out that although they mean the same thing, there are slight intonations in how you say it that adds to just like the emphasis of the sentence. There's stress placed on the different parts about how you're eating that apple. If it's emphasizing that you yourself are eating that apple, or the apple, the object that you're eating. And because there are so many different ways to make your sentence sound artistic and poetic, poetry is a very big thing in the Russian culture. In fact, I can guarantee you can grab any Russian off the street, put an automat Kalashnikov to their head, ask them to recite a poem, and they will do it word for word.
Можете ли вы несколько строк стихов нам рассказать?
Да, могу. Есенин. Заметался пожар голубой, позабылись родимые дали. В первый раз я запел про любовь, в первый раз отрекаюсь скандалить.
Вы помните, вы все, конечно, помните, как я стоял, приближившись к...
Каждый выбирает для себя женщину, религию, дорогу.
Девушка, здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
Шоу «Прослушка». Что сейчас слушаете?
Ганг-ганг-ганг-ганг-ганго. Ну, это техасский рэп.
Ага. Спасибо.
Alongside poetry, Russian music has no reason to slap so hard. No matter what genre of music you like, there's bound to be artists that you are 100% missing out on. Oh, and it would be a sin not to mention this, but old Soviet children's movies have the best soundtracks. Like, I don't know why, but they're all absolute bangers.
Каждому в лучшее верится. Катится голубой вагон. Ах, почему
был светофор зеленый. Все потому, что был он в жизнь влюбленный.
We're not going to talk about the actual movies and cartoons themselves. They're low-key kind of scary.
Справа от трубы были звезды медвежонка, а слева ежика.
In my opinion, one of the best reasons to actually learn Russian is just to speak to the people. Contrary to the stereotypes that Russians have in America where they're seen as these cold-hearted, angry-looking individuals.
Ты как ездишь? Чё хочу? Извините.
Russians are some of the most wholesome people in the world. If you try to speak with them in their own language, they will be incredibly grateful that you decided to learn their language. They'll even see it as a sign of respect. And even if your Russian is not very good, they will usually slow down in order to compensate for your dumbass. Здравствуйте, ты русский?
Yes.
Я учу русский язык.
Классно. Молодец.
Откуда ты?
Пермь.
Пермь?
Да.
Где это на карте? When you ask a Russian learner what the hardest part about learning Russian is, they will almost always say cases. Cases are the little endings of words that change based on each situation. It's kind of hard to explain in English, but let's take the word table for example. You can say on the table, under the table, from the table. The word table does not change, but in Russian that word does. На столе, под столом, от стола. It's a little confusing, but do you see what I mean? Despite how difficult it is to memorize these multiple endings for each word, knowing cases is actually not as important as your Russian teacher might make it out to be. In my opinion, using the wrong case doesn't actually take away from what you're trying to say, and most native speakers will be able to understand what you're saying. I mean, they'll think that you might have hit your head or something, but they'll understand you. Basically, cases are important if you're not trying to sound cringe, but most native speakers will be able to understand you even if you use the wrong one. Okay, I don't think it's possible to make a video about Russian without talking about swear words. There are so many lush and descriptive ways to emphasize what you're trying to say that swearing in Russian is one of the most chef's kiss way of speaking.
Скажи, Дед Мороз, где брать мои подарки? Дед Мороз, где брать мои подарки?
Idioms. You know, like those figurative phrases used to describe something else, like cat got my tongue in English. Well, Russian idioms are some of the goofiest and funniest ways of just saying random bizarre things. Okay, let's look at some, and I want you to guess what you think they mean. Okay, are you ready? Где раки зимуют? Where the crawfish hibernate. Говорят, что кур дает. They say you can milk chickens. Когда рак на горе свистнет. When the lobster on the mountain whistles. Любовь зла, полюбишь и козла. Love is evil, you'll fall in love with the goat. What the fuck? With Putin's war going on in Ukraine, Russian is not currently the most popular language to learn, which is honestly a shame, because a lot of people are missing out on some amazing and kind of goofy culture. Это все, что я хотел рассказать в этом видео. Иди учи русский, мартышка.